Welcome everybody to the Lake Barkley Chamber Lunch and Learn. This week our Lunch and Learn is going to be with Tracey Pharris from BB&T, and she's going to give you some pointers on how to be financially successful.
We hope, right? I always say I don't even fill out my checkbook registry. I'm not very good about that. So I'm like, those who can't teach, right? The old saying. But no, so what I do with BB&T is I do our financial wellness program. So I don't know what all of you are part of the community or what you do. But what BB&T has learned is that most large and even small organizations are starting to offer a financial wellness program for their employees. So what BB&T has done is we've started offering this for free, not only to clients of BB&Ts, but companies and organizations that aren't a client of BB&Ts as well. What you may not realize is that BB&T does a lot in the community. We do educational services for high schools. So we provide them with online systems that they can use to teach the financial wellness portion that's required for their curriculum. We give that to them for free. We do leadership symposiums for executives. In Bowling Green, we just had a leadership symposium that we invited several of the executives in the area to teach them a little bit more about being a leader. We've all had bosses that are really great at business, but maybe not so great at relating to their employees or motivating their employees. It kind of takes both, right? Sometimes you're one-sided and not the other. So BB&T has started focusing on helping with that. But the other thing that I'm most passionate about is the wellness program that we do for employees. So something we always talk about is if your employee comes to you and they're sick, you send them to the doctor, they come back to work and they feel better, right? But if you didn't send them to the doctor, what kind of employee do you have for that day? Not a very good one. But if they're financially sick or if they're fiscally unfit, your employee is probably just as bad off, but you don't have a doctor to send them to. So what BB&T has decided is when we can come to different organizations, when we can be on site, and we can be there to help and answer questions, we kind of give them that yearly checkup that they get from the doctor through a financial way. So if anyone has any questions about the program that you want to ask or anything, please feel free just to jot it out, or we can talk one-on-one afterwards if you kind of want to learn a little bit more about what our program does in the community. I visit with companies from 1,000 employees to 10. So it's something that I enjoy doing. I cover Western Kentucky, so I have everywhere from Paducah over to Bowling Green up to Glasgow. So it's quite a large range. There's about 36 different BB&Ts that I work with. But we're really starting to branch out even into some of the areas that we don't have locations, just because we think this is such an important program. I have given each of you a list of the seminars that we offer just for your reference, in case you or anyone else you know may want to offer something similar to their employees as to what we're going to do today. These are the 8 basic seminars that we offer. A lot of times I'll combine a few, I'll shorten a few just to kind of make it more flexible for the employers and their employees. I've even done these for different educational systems. I've done it for Ross Educational, which trains nurses and CNAs and some other things that may not typically fall into an employer-employee relationship, but something that's important to offer. Only 12% of schools offer a financial wellness program. So if you think about your employees, their lack of knowledge is not their fault. It's something that's not always presented. So these are some of the different seminars that we offer. But today, we're doing my favorite one, which is the 5 tips to take control of your financial future. So you have to bear with me, I'm a pacer. And for those of you who heard me talk, I have a 2-year-old. So a lot of times I'll be swaying. It's because I'm used to holding him and doing it. So I catch myself doing it when I'm not holding him and I look a little bit silly. So I don't think I'm losing my balance. It's just what I tend to do. Maybe when he gets up, I'll do that. But you guys, I catch myself like waiting in line when I'm just doing this. I'm like, that's not normal. So bear with me. So you've got this packet. I'll walk you really quickly through it, then we'll follow through as we go. So this help sheet tells you kind of an overview of what we're going to speak about today. So it kind of walks you through the process that we all should take to be a little bit more financially well. I always encourage people to share this with your children, with your parents. You know, some of the folks that have yet to learn this or may have kind of lost focus of where they are in their life. So feel free to take this and share it and kind of walk through some of the steps with them. I think so often we leave our children out of our financial either concerns or issues because we don't want them to be scared or worried. But we all need to learn that we only have a limited amount of money and what we do when it's important. I always tell people, no matter how big your paycheck, we all tend to live paycheck to paycheck, so we just buy more, right? So that's something that I think is important to share with your children as well. So this is where it all starts. This is your budgeting sheet. Does anybody want to take a stab at what % of Americans have a budget?
50%?
10.
Generous.
13.
35% of Americans have a budget. Now keep in mind, they say it varies very different by demographic. So some may be in the 65, some may be in 2s. But the average of those 35 that use it, what do you think that is? About 5%. So 35 have one, but only 5% of them actually use it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Your next sheet is debt consolidation. This is probably something that most Americans need to look at. I always say we give our credit card statement the one eye, like we just open it and look at what our payment is, and then we really don't look at much else. So we're going to walk through that a little bit. I can only speak for BB&T. I know that other financial institutions offer their products as well. So keep in mind when we go through some of this, I know what BB&T offers, but I may not necessarily know what your bank offers. So I can speak to ours, and if you have questions, I can answer that. But as far as what's available to you at your financial institution, I'm not sure of. But we'll talk a little bit about the ways that at BB&T we work through debt consolidation. And then your last 2 pages are the way that the BB&T at Work program actually started. So it started as a way for companies to give their employees the best benefits they could get for free. So when you work at the bank, you get a discount, right? People think we get free loans. We just take the money, but we do. We get a discount. So we get discounts on loans. We get free checks. We get free safety deposit boxes. We don't pay for our savings accounts. So we get a little bit better. And these ladies are spoiled too, because you've been with the banks for how long?
19 years.
Yeah, they weren't diapers. So, you know, we kind of get spoiled to what we get. We don't realize that other folks don't always get the same things. But when you work for companies that are part of our at Work program, they get the same discounts. So these last 2 pages touch on that. And the last page is the BB&T money account. You do not want me to get started on this because as I go through seminars, I talk about these nonstop. Your money account cards. What a lot of folks may not know is BB&T is the 3rd most secure bank in the country, 15th in the world. So we're very smart and sometimes too tight with our money. Maybe we might make some people mad when it comes to loans, but we do that because we're conservative and we want to keep ours and our clients' money safe. So we decided to offer our clients the same way to keep their money safe. So these are used to shop online when you travel, but they're also used for budgeting tools, which we'll talk about in a minute, and that's why they're in here. So I just wanted to give you a run through of your packet. So we're going to start today by first talking about how to develop a budget. So we know that 35% of Americans have a budget. So how many of us have one? Are we going to meet the 35% in the room? Well, we're close. let me see my math skills. Not very good. Okay. So you 2 have a budget. Can I ask you questions? Do you have a written budget or just kind of a mental idea of what extra money you have left over?
Mine's written.
My husband's is a written budget.
Okay. So he's on top of it. Okay. I think a lot of us, I live a lot of times by the 60-40 rule. 60% of your income goes to your necessities, 40% is left over to divide up into savings and other options. So a lot of folks may not have an actual written budget, but they have an idea of what's left over for extra money, right? A lot of us kind of fall into that category, I think. So when we first talk about developing a budget, and I bet you guys are good at this, especially your husband, is we talk about knowing where your money goes. So does anybody know what their largest bill is? Mortgage, right? What's your smallest bill? Does anybody have Netflix?
Oh, that's not the smallest bill.
It's like $7, right? I forget that one every time. I get this Birchbox in the mail, that's $10 a month. Like those little ones are the bills that we tend to forget about. So you'll do your budget and like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I had, $100 a week left over. Well, you don't, because you forgot about the little bills. Do you pay for a car wash? Or do you pay for a radio in your car? Some of those little things that just kind of come out of our account that we forget about. Do you have a kid that takes $20 out of your purse, every week? That might need to be on our budget sheet as well. So what they ask you to do, and if anyone's ever started a diet, they tell you to write down what you eat every day, right? And then you really think about what you're putting in your mouth, and you have to write down those 3 Cheetos that you stole out of someone else's bag. Or my kids' chicken nuggets I eat off their tray. So when you write down everything that you spend, they recommend 3 months. I think that's a little bit, I'm not that controlled. Write down everything you spend, let's say for 2 weeks. When you go into the Minute Mart or the gas station to get your water, do you want to write down that you got the Smart Water for $2.50, or do you want to write down that you got the Kroger brand or whatever for $1? So sometimes when you write down what you're spending, you see where some of that money's going. They also recommend that you keep a folder with all your bills in there. Because you may guesstimate your water bill's $25 a month, but you may see over time that it tends to lean a little more towards 40 or 35 or whatever that might look like. So if you keep a folder with those bills in there for 3 months before you do your budget, that's what's recommended. And how many of you pay your bills online?
Some, not all.
Okay. I have a digital folder on my computer that I swipe them over to, and that helps me kind of keep track of them a little bit better than having an actual paper folder, because I hardly get any bills in paper anymore. So for me, that's what tends to work. So what do we do after we get our folder? We look through it and we figure out where our money's going, right? And why is that important? Why do we need to know where it goes? Because how do we cut if we don't know where it goes, right? So before you even fill out your budget sheet, if you look and see where your money's going, you'll know when you get to the end of your budget sheet if you're in red or if you're in green, some things that you might need to do to cut. So we all have those things that we spend money on that we shouldn't. Does anybody want to share what theirs might be?
Cat food.
We gotta feed your cat.
Yeah, but.
You don't have to buy the size diet,
I
$65.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, I really don't want to budget and see how much I spend on cat food.
Yeah,
My cats eat real well.
yeah, better than they probably. We had a dog, God rest her soul, that had kidney failure. That size diet dog food, I swear, was more expensive than what we spent on groceries every week. My favorite was, I was doing one of these, and this guy raised his hand, and he said, I spend about I think he said $75 a month on something. He said, I did a budget, and I wrote down everything. He said, I spend $175 a month on something that's not good for me, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. And so we were like, well, does he smoke? Does he drink? You know, what's he spending this money on? I said, well, do you mind telling us what it was? And he said, ice cream. We were all like, okay, so I've used that. I love that one, because I'm like, that's one of those things that you think nothing about. But he was expensive ice cream. Like, he would drive through and get like Cold Stone or Culver's. I mean, he wasn't just getting a 99-cent cone, you know, from McDonald's. So the lady next to him, she said, well, you could buy a whole gallon, you know, from Sam's for $4 and keep it in your freezer. He had never even occurred to him. Yeah. Mine I say with Starbucks. I was in the habit of just driving through Starbucks on my way to work every day. And then when I realized $5 a day times 25 times 4 is way more than I want to spend on coffee. So
And I've seen that comparison in a lot of financial.
it's one of the worst things. I mean, I'm guilty of it myself. So what I do now is, we'll talk in a minute about those money account cards, is I actually have a Starbucks gift card that my mom got me. Everybody always gives me Starbucks gift cards for like my birthday and Christmas, because they know I want it, but they've all heard me talk about how I won't spend it. So they always give me gift cards. Well, I've learned I can reload that gift card with what I budget myself to spend. So if I say I can have $20 this month, when that gift card's empty, Tracey's done with Starbucks. And that's kind of how I use those money account cards. So who's heard Dave Ramsey? Has anybody ever been to him? So he's got his envelope system, right? Dave Ramsey was in Bowling Green the other day to get his Corvette. Now, I'm not quite sure which envelope that comes out of, but I guess it's proof that it works.
It took him a while to get it.
Right. That envelope had to grow and grow and grow. It's now a manila folder, I guess. But it's empty now because he has a Corvette. But I use those money cards the same way. So those money cards that are in the back of your packet are reloadable visas, basically, from BB&T. And like I said, other banks may have something similar. I don't know. But the way I use them is, I actually have 4. You can get 5 for free with our elite account. And I put certain money on each one every paycheck. So a lot of people like to use them, one for gas, one for eat now, whatever that might be. It's a little bit easier than an envelope because you actually have a card to swipe, and we all know you can't buy anything with cash hardly anymore.
I had a question on that. My daughter was visiting and she had something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't know if she should use debit or credit when she was getting gas with one of those cards.
I always just use mine as a credit.
Yeah, that's what I told her. She thought it was a debit and then it wouldn't let her charge the gas on it.
I would think it could go either way. Do you know, Teresa?
On the phone, you can't put your debit in.
That's what that must have been, the
Okay.
problem was in that card.
I mean, usually you can put a debit, but I mean, usually it goes as a credit.
Yeah, because it's what holds it
I
all.
thought the pump asked you for debit
It
or
does,
credit.
it does ask for debit or credit, but
But then you have to have a PIN number.
you've got to have a PIN number, and, I mean, with this, have a
Yeah,
PIN number.
yeah.
This one
They do
has
have a
debit.
PIN.
But me personally, with the scammers that are out there on the ATM machine, or even on the pumps and all that, I would never put
Your PIN number.
PIN number in.
Well, and that's honestly, I travel so much. If I either use my BB&T credit card or I have a money account card that I keep in my wallet that I use for different things like that. So if I'm in a gas station, it seems a little off to me, or I was at a festival the other day and my little girl wanted a popsicle. Well, I never have cash obviously because I wrote a check for today, but I used my money account card because there's this sweet little teenager in there just swiping it on her iPhone, and I'm sure she's sweet as can be, but I just don't trust that little square, you know? So I put the money over to that and use that, and they have a lot of different uses, like you said, 3 pumps or whatever, but they're great for budgeting. So I have a vacation one, I have a Christmas one, and I have a entertainment one that I kind of put money aside on, and then that's kind of what we use if we want to do something out of the ordinary. And then I actually have one more that either I carry with myself or I give to my babysitter, because they're reloadable. So if she has my kids and I give her $20 and they end up wanting to do something else, you know, I can either put more on there, or if she doesn't use the whole 20, but she's a sweetheart, but you know, she's not gonna bring me back $7.35 because I didn't use it all, nor would I ask her to. But it's just nice that it's kind of there to keep using. So they're used for a lot of different things.
Tracy, hold on.
Yep.
But if your daughter was using a gift card, they don't have
Mhm.
debit.
Maybe that's what it
And
was.
9 times out of 10, it doesn't have a PIN.
Like if
number.
someone had given
So
her a
you have
Visa
to use
gift
it as
card.
credit.
Yeah. If someone had given her a Visa gift card.
I think that was something like that.
So on
How
your,
safe are the phones? You know, a lot of people use their phone to pay bills. And,
yeah.
I do.
All of
You
them.
know,
I do.
I do an identity theft seminar as well, and I've been told that if you do use your phone, you want to make sure that you're on your own secured network, that you're not at McDonald's on their free
Yes.
Wi-Fi. And I've been told that you want to make sure that you clear your sites, that you never save your passwords. It's just like using your tablet. I mean, it's a little bit more risky, I've heard, than a normal laptop. But it's kind of the way that we pay everything now.
for some people, you know, they'll go to McDonald's and use their phone to pay for.
Oh, you mean as paying, I was thinking paying a bill.
Oh, okay, okay.
I personally don't load my card information to my phone. Maybe I'm still a little old school, that seems a little iffy to me. I lose my phone all the time, so I don't really want to risk that. Because I know that it's available, and I have an iPhone, so it's available. I haven't yet felt comfortable enough to upload my card information. That's just that.
I just pay all my bills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll put it on. And honestly, the identity theft seminar that I do, you know, kind of discourages from doing that, but Apple would probably tell you it's completely fine.
I'm not gonna do it.
They also won't let the government hack into their phones, so who knows?
I paid some bills online, but I
Right.
don't do it on my phone.
Right, and sometimes, and this is a whole other seminar, but sometimes it's safer to pay online because you're not sending your routing and account number to a company. So if you pay your water bill, I'm on your water bill today, and you send a check to them, so they already know your social, they already know your address, now they have your routing and account number, there's really not much more they need to become you. But if you do, I know with BB&T, if you do our online bill pay, it's coded. It literally just sends them the direct deposit, so to speak, without any of your account information. So a lot of times it is safer to pay through auto bill pay. But that's a whole other, sorry, we got off topic. I told y'all, I get off topic, you gotta snap me back in. So to regroup our budget sheet, let's look over that really quickly together. So you've written down everything that you've spent for, let's say, 2 weeks, okay? You've kept a folder of your bills for, what do you think's good, 3 months? Does that feel good? So then you sit down and fill this out. And if you look through it, it's pretty well thought out. It should have pretty much everything on there that you're gonna need. So you've got your car payments, insurance, debit payments, blah, 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 blah. Debt payments. I love the fact when you get on the back, it even breaks down your haircuts. Like I said, the little bills that we forget about. your medicine, your toiletries. I mean, I don't know about you, but I can go to Walmart to get shampoo, all this stuff. The next thing I know, I've spent $100, right? And all I needed was some Dove, because I don't need to buy the expensive stuff. Half the time it's, Garnier with a coupon. But it all adds up. So those are the things that we start to forget about. Any of your bills that are monthly, or quarterly, or every 6 months, or once a year, you're going to divide those up by the month, so that you have a good idea. Does anybody pay their taxes at the end of the year, or do you all have that come out of your house payment?
We do.
Yeah. And I like it that way. A lot of people do it the other way. But that's something that a lot of folks don't think about until that time. So if you break that down into your budget, maybe that's a great thing to have an extra savings account for, an extra checking account for, that you put that money into until you're ready to use it. So the next thing that we talk about after we make this is, so what if we're in the red? That's not a good day, right? So what do we do then? We start looking and seeing, where's the ice cream? Where's the Starbucks? What are the things that I can cut? I know that my nails are usually the first thing that goes. I'm like, I really like having my nails polished, because I feel like it's part of work. That's my excuse for myself. But it's like a diet. If you cut too much out, you're not going to stick to it, right? So if you tell yourself, we're never going to eat out ever. We're never going to, whatever your treat for yourself may be, we're never going to do that. Well, you're probably not going to stick to your budget if you do that. So it's good just to see some of the places you can skim. I cut out my gym membership because, to be quite honest, I spent $50 a month and never went. So I kept, liking to have it on my keychains. I thought it was going to make me go, but I wasn't going. So I cut that out. What are some things? You have magazine subscriptions that you just keep getting that you don't even really care that much about anymore. Whatever that might look like for you. So if you're in the red, that might be some decisions that you need to look at. Now, if you're in the green, what do we do with it then? Blow it? We get our Corvette, right? That's what we do if we're in the green. No, that's when we start looking at the next part of our session here, which is paying down debt. So if you're in the green, the first thing that you want to think about is, what debt do I have lying out there? This next sheet is a debt consolidation sheet. Has anyone ever used anything like this before?
And when you apply for a loan or something, they always have you fill that out.
Okay, so you have a good idea of what you've got coming in, what you got going out. The part I like about this the best is the back. So let's take a scenario for a minute, and I gotta get my numbers right because I always underestimate this myself. So let's say you got $3,000 debt on a credit card, 17% interest. How long do we think it's going to take us to pay that off? If you only make $50 a month, which may or may not be the minimum payment, but if you're paying $50 a month. Anybody want to take a stab? Let me give you choices.
3 years.
5.
No, never.
It would feel like never. How about 11 years and 3 months? $3,743 of interest and 11 years and 3 months. All for $3,000. That's not even that much. I mean, considering. So we all should be aware that if you have a credit card, by law, they have to put on there how long it's going to take you and how much interest you're going to pay if you make the minimum payment. So this is when I say we give it the one eye. We all open our bill, kind of look at it, and just write a check and don't want to think about it. But when you actually think about $3,743 in 11 years, that's a huge difference. That's the thing I think we should share with our children the most, is if you think about where you are 11 years from now, or where you were 11 years ago, that's a completely different lifestyle. 11 years ago, I had no children, I had no mortgage, I had a car that I didn't even pay for, to be honest. So, now, if I had done that in college or so and gotten that $3,000 credit card, now I have 2 kids, I have a mortgage, I have a car payment, I'd still be paying on that $3,000. So it's something to think about when you put it in terms like that. So that's what this sheet does for you. So it allows you to put your credit card, your balance, the percent rate, and the minimum payment. This is a great way to look and see where you really are and what you need to start paying down first. So BB&T talks a lot about debt consolidation through different ways. It always sounds crazy to say, I'm in debt, give me a credit card, right? But I tell folks, and this is where Dave Ramsey and I could have a go-between, a credit card is not necessarily a bad thing if you use it the right way. So if you have a Kohl's card, a Target card, a Dillard's card, if you have all these little cards with maybe $300 to $400 on them, you're probably paying what, 25% interest on maybe some of them, at least 21. So if you can take all that together and put it onto another card that you're not gonna have any interest on for either 12 or 15 months, that's a life changer. So if you look at your payment and your payment's $100 a month and only 40 of it's going to your principal, you're wasting $60 a month. So when you take all those together and you put them on another card that has 12 or 15 months to pay it off, you're not hurting yourself, you're helping yourself. But it's something that sounds scary if you don't come and meet with the Teresas and kind of let them walk you through that process. So I always encourage anyone that has something they're trying to pay off to look at your other options and not just think about that as a sentence to pay off. We do unsecured loans sometimes, an equity line on your home. Excuse me. So there's many different ways to get a lower interest rate to get those paid off. So that's something that I always encourage people to think about. But more along the Dave Ramsey side, which we've talked about before, is snowballing. Has anybody ever used that to pay off debt? I have. That's the way I finally broke out of my crazy ways. So what snowballing means is you put your debt into 3 categories, okay? So you have the all heck no's, maybe a mortgage, maybe a big student loan, something that you know you're not just gonna save up enough just to pay off, right? That's something that you've pretty much committed to paying to for 10 years, 15 years. Then you've got the, well, I could maybe pay that off. So maybe a car or a smaller student loan or a credit card with $3,000 on it, something that you could kind of wrap your head around in the next 2 or 3 years. And then you've got the, oh my gosh, I never even thought about paying them off. I helped a girl the other day. She had a card at Victoria's Secret, $125, and she was paying like $15 a month on it. When really, if she had just taken 2 paychecks and pulled out $75, she could have just paid it off. And when we talked about that, she's like, I never even thought about that. I just opened it and paid it, opened it and paid it. So a lot of times when you group your debt into categories, there may be something that you could just pay off if you just cut out a few things for a few weeks and paid it off. So we like to do that first. So let's say you have 3 little credit cards that you're paying $25 a month on. And let's cut out our ice cream and our nails and our Starbucks for a few months and get those paid off. Well then, you've got $75 in payments a month that you were making. So you take that $75 and you move it to the larger bills. So you have 3 bills that you're paying $50 a month on. So now you put $75 on each of those, right? So then when that's done, you can either tackle these big bills or we move on to the next part of your program, which is starting an emergency fund. I always recommend that you start your emergency fund before you start tackling the big mortgages. I mean, it'd be great to make double payments, triple payments, but if you don't have anything in the emergency fund when something goes wrong, you're going to go back to that credit card or you're going to go back to some other things that you may not need to do. Anybody want to take a stab at how much is supposed to be in your emergency fund? 3 to 6 months of salary is what they recommend. So I always have to look at my numbers, but I can't remember this one. So if you work, let me get this right. So if you make $45,000 a year, that would be anywhere from $11,250 to $22,500 in your emergency fund. Sounds a little big, right? Because you think about that's literally what your salary would be for 3 to 6 months. I feel a lot of times when I tell people that, they're like, oh, forget it. You know, I'll never have that. So this is what I tell people to do. Look at your budget sheet that we just looked at. Highlight the things that you could not live without. And I mean literally not live without. So if you and your husband both, or wife, lost your job tomorrow, I bet you can do without cable. You know, if you gotta feed your kids or watch cable, what are you gonna do? You're not gonna watch cable. You're gonna need a car because how are you gonna find a new job? How are you gonna get to interviews? You can't do anything without your car. Now, do you need your really nice car? Maybe not. So you just gotta think of the things that you absolutely could not do without. You have to pay your mortgage. You have to pay your insurance. You know, but some of the other things that we like to do, our haircuts, our other things, we don't have to have those. And look at that number. And try to have 3 to 6 months worth of that number in your emergency account. And that's going to be different for everybody. So I can't necessarily guesstimate what that would look like for you depending on your mortgage and a few other things. But to me, that's kind of what helps you sleep at night. Like if you know we could survive for 3 to 6 months is a little bit different than living your exact same lifestyle for 3 to 6 months. And with your emergency fund too, I'm kind of a glass half full kind of gal. So emergency fund doesn't have to be a bad thing. Let's say you have a baby. You know, the wife's not working for I don't know, 6 to 12 weeks, depending on how long she stays home. That's a time when you're not bringing home the same money, but it's not necessarily a bad thing, but you're gonna want that emergency fund for moments like that. Let's say you get a new job, and you're not getting paid for, when I got my job at BB&T, the way that we pay was completely different than the way my old job paid. So I went, golly, at least a month without getting a paycheck. And that was a good thing, but I still needed some emergency fund to fall back on. So you don't always have to think of your emergency fund as for a rainy day. It can also be for a sunny day, right? Does anybody have any questions about the budget, the paying off the debt, or the emergency fund? Because these last two we just kind of run through really quickly. No? Did I leave out anything, ladies? Anything you want to add? Okay. One thing I'm going to tell you about that's not in your packet, and I love to share, is whether you're a client of BB&T's or not, you can go on our website and play with our tools. So BB&T is really, I think, phenomenal at helping people figure out what's best for them. So my budget will look different than yours. Your retirement plan will look different than mine. My necessities are different than yours. But with BB&T, you can go to bbnt.com/my retirement plan, learn and plan. It's under tools or something, isn't it actually? You just go to bbnt.com. And it walks you through different calculators. So there's even, when this is usually what we have on our screens, I'm sorry, I'm just showing you a little black and white. But you can walk through the current amount I have saved. So this person has $1,000. Amount to save per month, $200. It walks through living expenses. It walks you through all the different things that are on your budget sheet and helps you calculate your emergency fund. So if you do like we spoke of and just put in those highlighted fields, you're going to get a true estimate of what it would take for you to survive for 3 to 6 months. And don't forget to put gas on that one, because a lot of times we'll put our car, but we forget we have to put something in it. So a lot of times those are the things we forget about. And luckily gas is cheaper than it has been in the past, so that should help. But it gives you a chart of how long it's going to take you to get there. They also have tools for your budget. That sheet that I gave you can actually plug in interactively if we don't want to do the math, and it'll show you where you are. It also has different tools for retirement. You can put in how much you have saved now, what kind of program it's in, and what that's going to look like, and walk you through that. So that's the next thing we talk about is saving for retirement. Now, I'm not sure where everybody works. Usually when I'm in a group setting, I kind of know where everybody works, so I can tell them what their retirement plan is. But do most of you have a 401k or an IRA that you contribute to? Okay. So this is something that's going to get your vote. So how long do you think the average person works after retire or lives after retirement?
Retired people still working here.
Well, that's true. I think my granddaddy worked 5 times after he retired, but generally speaking, 25 years after you retire, you're going to live without your retirement funds. Thank goodness we've got all these great medical advances. We've got assisted living homes. We've got nursing homes that allow us to live longer than ever before, but we still have to pay for that time, right? And we had our investment counselor speaking to us about our retirement plan one day, and he said, you got to think when you retire, every day's a Saturday. And I thought, well, you quit rubbing it in that I've got about 60 more years that I have to work, because that sounds great. But when you think about it, how much money are you going to spend today? You spent $5 to get in here. You spend how much for breakfast? Did you even eat breakfast out or did you eat at home? I had a granola bar in the car. I think that's $4 per box. And you may eat dinner out, but you're probably eating dinner at home. You're probably not shopping today. You're probably not going anywhere. So Monday through Friday, you might spend, I don't know, what, 15 bucks a day? 20? What do you spend on Saturday? You go to the grocery, you go to the lake, you put gas in your boat, you go to Lowe's, you go to Home Depot. You're spending quite a bit more on a Saturday than you are on a Tuesday, right? So when you're home every day, you're going to spend more money, technically, they say. And we also hope that you've done your debt calculator and you've paid all that down. Maybe your mortgage is paid off. So maybe there is ways that you're not spending as much. We just hope it balances, right? So you want to think about if you are contributing to a 401k, how much do you think you should have? And how much should you contribute? Any idea of the percentages?
15%?
They say 10 to 15%. But this is what you have to keep in mind. If you bring home $1,000, 10% is not 100. It's pre-tax. So though 10 to 15% can sound scary, this is not necessarily as big of a chunk as you think. Also, let's say your company matches you up to 5%. Well, then you only have to put 5 in because there's your 10%. So you kind of got to think about it in a little bit looser terms than exactly the 10 to 15%. I always recommend when I do new hire orientations that people start at 6%. That's a good average, and then add 1% every year. So that way it kind of gives you time to get used to it before it's gone. And think too, there are different times in our life. If you have little children, or you're sending people to college, or whatever that might look like, you may not be able to save as much as you were before that. It's flexible. But it's just something that you want to keep top of mind. We talk a little bit about how much money is money. So if you have $368,000 by the time you retire, that may only spend like $148,000 because of inflation. So there's different things to consider as well when you look at your retirement plan. But that's something a great investment counselor or your 401k advisor can kind of walk you through. But it is something to think about. We've got the calculators for that again, like I said. And the one thing that the big stop sign means is early withdrawals. So anytime that you take an early withdrawal from a 401k, I think they can all be different, depending on who's in charge of yours. But you're going to usually get a 10% penalty. You're going to have like 25% in taxes that you're going to pay. And you're hurting yourself in the future. A lot of times when you meet with one of your Teresas, you can work out a home equity line or some other ways to kind of help you through what that money may have been used for. So that's something to consider. Any quick questions about retirement? We're almost done. When will you ever retire? I don't know. I don't have a question for that or an answer for that. Okay, so I told Teresa before we came that this is when I always tear up, so y'all have to bear with me on this one. How many percent of Americans do you think have a will? I'll tell you this, 60% of Americans do not. So with children under the age of 18, guess how many don't? 70%. So this is when I always cry. Because we don't want to think about that. When you have little kids, you don't want to say, what if I'm not here, right? See, I told you, it's every time. And this is why. Because if I have to sit down and think about what's going to happen with my kids without me, that's scary, right? But it's also scary when you don't have kids. It's scary when you have a spouse. It's scary at any point of your life to sit down and think about people living without you, because we're all so great, right? So the reason that we don't do it is because it's scary. The reason we don't talk about life insurance or we don't talk about some of these other things is that it's scary for us. But if we don't, who's going to do it? So that's what made me finally get my act together, was I thought, I'd rather cry about it and sit down and do it than my whole family have to cry and figure it out when I'm gone, right? So I encourage everyone, of course, now the bank's not necessarily going to help you with your will, but we can at least help you figure out what you got to worry about. So take a minute, go see your attorney. You can do a will online, I think. Have y'all ever known anybody do that?
Yeah, just another house will do that.
Yeah. So how do they do that?
They just fill it out, they come in, you're just over, one of notary just signs,
So the attorney doesn't look at it at all? Huh. They can do that? Did they find it?
It will be just a complete statement from the,
Okay. Was it pretty general though?
I didn't read it.
See, she's better than me. I didn't read it.
The will is
Didn't
not,
look at it, I just signed it.
I've been nosing
the
through.
will is not actually filed at the courthouse until after.
Exactly.
Okay. So most people just have an attorney to help keep it in line. But the bank can help you with trust accounts and some other things that you might need to do with the process. So one of the other things we talk about is beneficiaries. Does anyone know their beneficiaries on their life insurance, 401k? Okay. Are any of them under the age of 18? Okay. Okay. So here's what you think about, and I'm sure when you're in a perfect world, everybody's happily married, that's perfect. If you're not, and you pass on, and your kids go to someone else, whomever is the gardener, I got all the word. Whoever is their, I can't take the word now, guardian is the one who gets that money. So if you have $50,000, it doesn't go to Johnny. $50,000 goes to who's taking care of Johnny. Okay? So a lot of times what you can do is you can have it go to your estate. And you guys can help me with this a little bit more because I don't do it probably as often as you do. But a beneficiary can have it go to your estate, right? And then it'll be managed through your trust and whomever's in charge of that. So there's other options to think about. You leave it to someone that you know is going to do the right thing with it, which and their caregiver may very well, but it's just something to consider. It's something that I know most bankers are pretty good about telling folks when they sign up for, when they fill that out, but a lot of times you're not told. So if you're filling your paperwork out at work, no one's there to tell you, by the way, if they're under 18, this is what's going to happen. So it's just something to think about. Okay, very last thing, college. Does anybody have any little ones headed to college anytime in the near 20 years? Grandchildren too, absolutely, absolutely. We do a whole seminar on planning for college, and I have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old, which is why I can't do the wheel speech. Whenever I looked at the projected college cost, I was like, oh, okay, let's look at these presidential candidates again and see who's gonna give money for that, because that's where we need help. But the projected college costs are a little bit nuts, right? But everything else is going up too. So there's different college savings accounts, there's 529 accounts, there's Coverdell accounts, and I'm not going to take time to walk through each of them with you, but just be aware that there are some better options than just your everyday savings account for Johnny or Jane. And I can answer questions if you want to even talk one-on-one afterwards about some of the differences between the two. But I'll tell you they're a lot more affordable than you would think. I remember when I have the 529 for my kids, and when I first got ready to get it, I thought I was going to have to put this big astronomical amount into it. It's a raw, and it just sounds all scary. But I mean, it's usually very simple. I think mine was $250 to start, and as long as you put $50 a month in, you're fine. Like, it was much easier than I thought it was going to be. So it's something to think about. Speaking of grandchildren, I gave the grandparents the speech the other day that we don't need 3,000 toys for Christmas. Literally, if we just want to put money into this and give them a couple of things, I mean, they're going to survive. So sometimes it's a thing that takes a village. So it's not a bad idea to start something like that and kind of share it with your family. I think that we have come to the end. All right, we have survived. So I want you to write this down real quick, guys, because it's not on the projector. So BB&T.com/my retirement plan is where you can go for some of those calculators and tools. It may very well even be on that front sheet.
It's on there.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yes.
I don't even know what I get. So that's on there. That's going to be the best way to play with some of those tools. I encourage everybody, you know, if you can't overhaul your entire financial future in one day, just really focus on the budgeting and the paying off debt part, because once you do that, the emergency fund will come, the retirement fund will come, all that will happen on its own good time. But what you don't want to happen is to get to the retirement fund time and still have debt that you're paying off. So the quicker we work on that, the better off that we all are. Does anybody have any questions or anything that we want to talk a little bit more about?
Okay.
Or anything we didn't cover that you were hoping to? No, either I did really good or really bad and y'all are asleep. I did a bunch of college students the other day, and I said, listen, I've never had anybody fall asleep. And I said, you guys are making me nervous. Because it was like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I thought this is going to be the moment that somebody finally falls asleep on me. But it went well, so they didn't fall asleep. I threw stuff at them.
I think it's always a good reminder, even for people that are sort of well-planned.
Right.
It's a reminder to all of us that we need to
You need
pay
to relook
attention
at
to
it
our
sometimes.
finances
Yeah.
and our retirements.
They say with your budget sheet that every 3 to 6 months you should revisit it, especially a new one. I say after a month to revisit it, which is what I like about this one, because it has a portion of whether you were on track or not. Because let's say that you guessed at a bill and then you realize it was $10 more. That $10 is going to add up over every month, right? So they say to revisit it after the first month. And then from then on, just to check it every 3 to 6 months. Or any life change. If you have a new kid or if you get a different job, and that's a time to recheck. Thank you. Anybody, any other questions? No? Well, thank you guys very much for letting us control. Oh, thank you.